All right, so hi everyone, and thank you so much for joining us this evening. My name is Emily Prado, and I'm the Interim Director of Youth Programs. I'm also a former WITS writer who misses teaching a lot in the classroom, but I'm really excited to get the opportunity to observe a lot of the writers who are here today and also listen to them read their work. So thank you for coming together for what I'm calling a tongue twister of an event. This is called the WITS Writer Winter Reading, and it is a yearly tradition where we normally gather in the library at Literary Arts to drink wine, eat cheese, like I mentioned already. Those are two of my favorite things, as well as have the opportunity to listen to some of the amazing work from the people who are on our writing roster. We still get to do the latter today, and as I was mentioning to a couple of folks earlier, it's extra special in some ways because we get to have people who are here from different places who might not ordinarily get the chance to also join us. So thank you for being here with us. If you haven't had a chance, feel free to grab some hors d'oeuvres. We'll get started here in a moment, but I'm going to introduce a little bit about our program as well as Jules, who is going to be the MC for the evening. So we're going to hear from 8 writers during this event. There'll also be a brief intermission from about halfway through the event. And with that, I will let you know a little bit about Writers in the Schools. So for those of you who are not yet familiar, Writers in the Schools is a program of literary arts. We are a literary nonprofit based in downtown Portland with a 35-year history. WITS is one of 4 of our youth programs at Literary Arts. We currently serve public high schools in Portland and Gresham, and we look forward to future partnerships with schools as we continue our work. WITS writers collaborate with teachers to create semester-long creative writing residencies while sharing their expertise and personal experiences of the writing life, which looks very different for different people in different ways. But ultimately, we're all working together to support youth with learning how to use writing as a form of self-expression or just tapping into that if they're already interested in writing. In addition to our WITS program, we offer students a variety of literary opportunities, such as college essay feedback, as well as one-day visits from local and world-famous authors, such as Colson Whitehead, Tommy Orange, and Jessamine Ward. As well as many others. And we have the honor of serving more than 4,000 students with our programs each year. So all the writers who are here today are an integral part of that. And thank you all again for joining us, for reading your work, for listening to their work. And now that you know a little bit about our programs, I will pass it over to Jules. Before I do, I just would like to introduce Jules. Jules Ohman is a program specialist for Writers in the Schools, and she's also a writer. She co-founded the nonprofit called Freeverse, which teaches creative writing in juvenile halls and has worked before as a grant writer. She also writes novels, walks a lot, and lives with her partner in Portland. She earned her MFA in fiction from the University of Montana and is a wonderful asset to our team. With that, on to you, Jules.
Thanks, Emily. Hello and welcome to the WITS Writer Winter Reading. That's the last time I'm going to say that. I messed it up every time, but that was pretty good. I'm Jules. I'm the Writers in the Schools program specialist for literary arts. And it's just really nice to see you all here in the Zoom room, since we can't all be together in a nice warm room with drinks and snacks and a microphone. Hopefully you're all in your own nice warm rooms. Getting to be a part of this community with you all and to work with so many talented writers is a huge pleasure. And I'm just really, really appreciative to all the writers for the work they're doing this year in bringing creative writing into virtual classrooms across the city. They've managed to create connections and help students express themselves in spite of just really difficult circumstances. And I'm just super in awe of the work that they're doing right now. So it's a pleasure. So thank you all to our writers. And thank you all for coming tonight. It's so nice to see so many faces on this call and to hear some beautiful work together. Our first reader tonight is Matt Smith. Matt Smith grew up in Iowa and Arizona. He earned his BA in English literature from Arizona State University. He spent the subsequent 4 years after college in South Korea as an ESL teacher. His short fiction work centers on the intersections of race and identity. He is currently working on a collection of short stories focused on what it means to be multiracial in America. Matt was a 2017 to 2018 WITS apprentice. A fun fact about Matt is that he loves cosplay and has 2 cat children. Go ahead, Matt.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. I should update the bio because I'm actually not. I finished that collection of short stories a little while ago. So thank you very much. I am, sorry, I'm gonna do this through my phone because as Emily knows, my internet can be like really spotty and annoying. So give me 1 second. I apologize. I didn't realize I was on first and I'm unprepared.
And, you know, we heard a fun fact, so just want to let folks know that that is a nod to our former WITS program specialist who was with us on the team for over 2 decades. And she always does really fun facts about everyone. So Jules is carrying on the tradition of Joanna Rose. All right, let's see, Matt. Okay, Matt, let's see. One moment. Matt, are you in the room on your phone now? Let's see. Oh yeah, I see you there, Matt. You want to unmute yourself? There you go.
Okay, yeah.
All right. Welcome back.
Thank you for helping once again. Okay, we're all set. So I'm currently writing a science fiction novel. This has been something I've been working on for a little over a year. So this is just a little snippet from the beginning. Here we go. Everyone can hear me all right? Emily, somebody confirm?
Yes, thanks.
Cool, all right. They awoke on top of their backs on a hot surface, stiff like a plank, with a thick rubber mask bound to their face. Their wrists, ankles, and throat burned from the tight straps which fastened them down immobile. Dozens of souls began to scream and bellow, only to realize the apparatus attached to their skull sent a wide tube down their esophagus. They gagged and thrashed and snarled to no effect as they lay pinned shoulder to ankle between strangers. Who were these people? No one could tell. Even if they could lift their head, it was pitch black. When the straps finally detached, they disappeared into the surface they lay upon with incredible speed. Masks then fell loose, dangling around the jaw, oozing with saliva and phlegm. Tens, no hundreds, rose in anguish through calcified joints and chafed muscles, tugging at the tube down their throat, expelling the invader along with the contents of their stomach. The already dank space filled with the hot, putrid stench of acidic bile. It was so difficult to breathe, let alone endure. Its vile texture scourged the lungs. Frightened hands clutched at those around them. They fell to the floor in droves, landing feet below with a thump, then scurried in all directions, tripping, trampling, and piling over one another. No one knew where to go, nor where to hide, and the cold floor was no shelter. They crawled, following the thin strips of dim yellow light as they extended to an infinite point their near-atrophied eyes could not see. The dimensions of the room were impossible to read, and sickness caught the ones moving fastest. Children cried and pleaded for their mothers or their fathers, but no one came. Some of the adults did too. They were the most confused. For loved ones, for help, for answers, they called out in English, Spanish, Arabic, French, and Tagalog, several tongues. Joaquin Davis could no longer tell if the bodies he crawled over were alive or dead. The 20-year-old wondered how this foreign beard, this forest of hair stretching down his belly, appeared on his face. and the hair atop his head was foreign as well. Wide curls overtook his scalp, amassing in a great puff, letting the black in his Puerto Rican jeans jump out. Joaquin patted himself down. A one-piece suit clung to him from ankle to neck. It was made of an elastic material like a wetsuit. He pinched and tugged at the suit that stretched and snapped back to his skin, sopping wet. Nothing else added or missing on his lanky frame. He finished patting every inch of himself before nausea pounced on him again, and he bent over, lurching nothing but bile as a fever struck. Curling up in a corner where the others bumped and fell over him without pause, it felt good to have his back against the wall. This way, he only had to protect his front. If not for all the adrenaline, Joaquin would have collapsed under the weight of stress. The last thing he remembered was throwing gym clothes in his bag, kissing Donna goodbye, and creeping over to Terrence's place for their weekly release. Was it a car accident? Did I die before I could realize it? He wondered. Daggers of guilt stabbed at him as he pictured Donna going through his phone, or worse, his mother and father. Blood rushed to his head as his skull felt like it might detach from his shoulders. Phosphenes twinkled around him while nearby several cried out for God, weeping and tussling blindly with those around him. Violence occasionally broke out. Joaquin listened in horror to the smack of knuckles against flesh and bone, the mad huffing and puffing and the grunts of those still standing. This was hell. He was certain of it. It even smelled sulfuric like in his grandmother's Bible stories. Recalling her voice, he began to cry and blubber like the children. When he woke, the fever had not left him. In fact, he was doused in cold sweat with a woman lying against him, her head on his shoulder, and a large boy curled in a fetal position on his other side. All around, exhausted souls crowded themselves together in a massive huddle. Joaquin's humble corner was as crowded as ever. His eyes were still useless, but as time went on, he adjusted himself to their absence and even forgot them for short stints as he listened to the slow flare of neighboring nostrils and their slow rhythmic breathing. The effect was calming and hypnotic. Every once in a while, jolts coursed through a nearby man, causing sudden twitches in his sleep that rustled those around him. Joaquin clasped his hands for the first time in he did not know how many years and prayed. He spoke to God in Spanish the way his mother taught him. This way he will know what's in your heart, she would say. He prayed to be with her. He prayed to wake up back in the apartment. He prayed for a cup of water. If this was hell, he debated himself. If me and everyone else are dead, then why am I starving? And why do I feel like there's a hammer striking my brain over and over? Were they someplace worse? And that's it for now.
Thanks, Matt. That was awesome.
Yeah. Thank you.
If we can add either
very profound, very profound.
Or you can throw your compliments in the chat as well. We'd love to hear reactions, even though we're in a silent Zoom room. So thanks, Matt. Our next reader is Carolina Gomez-Montoya. Originally from Bogota, Colombia, Carolina Gomez-Montoya moves between various languages, disciplines, and mediums. She currently teaches at Portland State University and in the Language and Thinking program at Bard College. Carolina's writing appears in Litoral, Latin Americans' Voices, Voces Latinoamericanas, Basta, Mujeres Colombianas contra la Violencia de Género, Bogota, Debate Escrito 2015, and in Oregon Humanities Magazine. Carolina holds an MA and PhD in Latin American and Peninsular Literature from the University of Maryland, College Park. So as Emily said, former longtime WITS program specialist Joanna Rose always included fun facts from writers, some of which she would make up. I promise not to make any up tonight, so they're all true, which I love, but yeah, I'm not gonna do that to you. So I learned, however, from Carolina that Google defines fun facts as facts that are fun, but have a twist. So a fun fact about Carolina is that Carolina loves cats, but is allergic to them.
Thank you, Jules. Can you hear me? Perfect. Okay. I was told that I could read in Spanish, and since you can't throw tomatoes at me, I'm just going to go ahead with that. If Spanish is your first language, just sit back and relax. And if English is your first language, I'm going to try to read slowly so that you can hear me. This is called Una Lengua. Es la mayor ambición de una escritora inventar una lengua. Y en un pueblo remoto, lejos de las máximas autoridades de la palabra, Alicia inventó una, lo suficientemente parecida a la que enseñaba, como para que no despertase dudas, y a la vez tan peculiar que muy pronto captó la atención y entusiasmo de quienes empezaron a aprenderla. Fue así que Alicia transformó aquel anacrónico salón universitario en un laboratorio experimental, y en 5 años formó toda una generación de hablantes. Fundada por ella y regida por su benevolencia y capricho, la lengua comenzó a tomar forma, y quienes la hablaban la enseñaron a sus hijos, con la espontaneidad propia de la relación materna. De este crimen inusual, el corolario fueron cientos de hablantes de una lengua cuya vida fue corta pero fecunda. Yo soy una de aquellas estudiantes y doy constancia ante el jurado de la universidad y del tribunal de la provincia que pese a sus confusos e inexplicables objetivos, Alicia nos enseñó una lengua, la cual hablamos, escribimos y soñamos. Alicia nos hizo creer en un mundo que no existe, y tanto hemos creído en él que hemos contribuido a su expansión. Ensanchamos sus fronteras lingüísticas y filosóficas. Establecimos neologismos, trazamos nuevos campos de conocimiento, hasta convertirnos en expertas de algo que solo se podría calificar como la naturaleza performativa del lenguaje. Indescifrables son los peligros a los que Alicia deja expuestas a todas las otras lenguas, vulnerables ahora a la perpetuación de crímenes similares. Sé que la justicia actuará con rigor, mas les pido consideren que aun si llevan a la hoguera a Alicia, yo, las demás, nuestras familias y cada página que alguna vez se ha escrito, tendrá que ser destruida. Temo por el futuro, y temo que será poco lo que puedan hacer para borrarnos. Tras exhaustivos debates en cátedras académicas, el jurado acordó que desde entonces retiraría todos los beneficios y tutelaje de que gozaba la lengua, pronosticando así un lento y tortuoso periodo de decadencia. Al olvido no hace falta nada más que el tiempo, y muy pronto hablantes empezaron a quejarse de una curiosa pérdida de precisión y destreza, seguida de confusión frente al complejo sistema rítmico y fonológico. Las notas que Alicia había dejado fueron confiscadas, de modo que tras algunos años la lengua deliraba empobrecida. Algunas observaron inmutable su desintegración, pero quienes conservaron algo de ella identificaron en aquel fenómeno algo que Alicia les había transmitido, quizás inconscientemente, mientras discutían algún pronombre o declinación. A este fenómeno solo pudieron identificarlo con una imagen, pues le resultaba imposible lograr una traducción. La lengua carecía de la capacidad adjuntiva, y aunque sí había palabras para decir gallina o colibrí, ave era una imposibilidad lógica. De igual manera, lo que en otras lenguas se entiende por fuego era un concepto radicalmente opuesto. La palabra justa para describir el paso de un estado a otro, de la noche al día, del olvido al recuerdo, de la muerte a la vida, solo la sabía Alicia, quien en la oscuridad de un calabozo ubicado en los subterráneos de la universidad aguardaba su sentencia. Gracias.
Thanks, Carolina. Yeah, feel free to throw your reactions in the chat, or to do a, if you have not yet done a virtual hand clap, although I personally like this version. Thank you so much. Our next reader is Damien Miles-Paulson. Damien Miles-Paulson teaches slow dancing, writes, and still dreams of an overseas basketball career. His stories, poems, and sounds can be found at the Whole Beast Rag, the Washington Square Review, the Newer York, Alice Blue Review, Marco Polo Arts Mag, Everyday Genius, Past 10, Axolotland, and The Alarmist. He now walks the world with an MFA in creative writing from UCR in hand. A fun fact about Damien is that he is a founding member of the now disbanded experimental German noise band Flushot, which I would love to hear sometime. Damien?
We're so disbanded, we never even made an album, so that's how disbanded. Thank you. And thanks for your reading, Carolina. I was transcribing your video today, and I really liked your lesson on A Voyage Around the Bedroom. That's a good book for these times. So it was cool to watch you teach and then to hear you read. I keep like I think it's called a commonplace book, where I'll put things that I find and then my reactions to them. And I've been keeping it for a couple of years. And so this is just from that, just something I write for myself. And they're kind of divided up into, like, if I heard something on the radio, it's a radio piece or a bibliography or something like that. So I'll read. Number one, radio. A discussion of fear and cinema on the radio. A man says the reason bad guys explains things is to comfort us, that without explanations we encounter a narrative void, the stuff of nightmares, the unexplained as the abode of terror. A woman partially agrees, or she corrects herself, I partially agree, or a woman partially disagrees, or she corrects herself, I partially agree. She thinks they explain things to cover up lazy writing, a kind of textual housekeeping, but for the sake of conversation, she says, we can pretend more profound forces are at work. An hour later, on a different radio station, a brain scientist says that negative thoughts atrophy the brain. I feel incriminated by what I've just thought about the people in the car in front of me, beside me, behind me. At the next stoplight, I close my eyes. I try to navigate the series of burned down bridges crisscrossing the fatty Oregon up there. The brain lady says that pathways can be rebuilt. I must think 3 or 4 good thoughts for every shitty one. The smog is beautiful this time of day. My son's screams are pleasant and part of his own brain development. Isolation is a reasonable solution. I have a tendency towards duplicity. It is clear I have no idea what she means by a positive thought. The transmission is interrupted by a test of the emergency broadcast system, a trial run, an experiment in case of the end. When the radio comes back from the long tones, the end of a sentence, to think through, to investigate, to wander. 2, bibliography, quote, a brushing against the other side on the outer edge, an edge that is not in existence until the moment of encounter, and from which one can only dart back into the interiority of one's own speech. Ray Chow. 3, radio. I saw signs for Encino on the way to a parenting class in Sherman Oaks and thought about that movie Encino Man, but try as I might, I couldn't piece together the plot. All I had were images of a white guy in a loincloth. Didn't he get thawed from a block of ice only to spend time making out in malls and water parks in the 1980s? What was he doing in Encino 10,000 years ago anyway? These thoughts of whoever was in that movie, I think it was Pauly Shore, were interrupted by an interview on the radio with a poet named Ben Lerner. He said, quote, Robert Creeley developed his whole kind of poetics based upon his reading of William Carlos Williams' line breaks, which he thought of as like felt silences or hesitations. But then when Creeley heard Williams actually read and Williams just read right through his line breaks, he was like horrified. It's not that Creeley was wrong exactly, but he never would have developed that poetics if he had heard Williams read his poems early on. It was based in a sense on a misreading or a kind of creative pretending that, you know, was really productive. So I think that you can learn to be more sensitive. I just think it's less about acquiring some more stable knowledge and more about a kind of attitude. End quote. My whole life, I thought, was a series of misunderstandings and misappropriations that I hoped would someday be reconstituted as creative pretending. For the rest of the drive, I wrote notes with my thumb on my phone, despite knowing how stupid and dangerous it was to be distracted at such speeds, feeling awful about putting my son in danger so I wouldn't forget some thoughts. The parenting class was wonderful. We watched the children interact and then talked about what we observed. The kids were relaxed and free that day, though it hadn't always been that way. They've been together for months now and have completely given up on sharing, or we, the parents, have stopped forcing it on them, so that now objects just move fluidly through the room from hand to hand. Sharing, it turns out, just focuses all the attention on the object rather than on the interaction. The object is meaningless, an excuse. For a moment, I felt like I was seeing my son as fully separate from me, that he'd forgotten me, my need to see him dance, that he was permitted for a moment to drop the performance of being my kid. And that's all.
Thanks, Damien. Cheer for Damien in the chat or in your box. Thank you so much. It's fun to read. I know normally when we cheer like in the studio at Literary Arts, we don't get to hear the actual feedback. So it's kind of fun to read also. And to get to pick favorite lines and that kind of thing. So thanks so much, Damien. Next up, we have Day Rivers. Day Rivers is a mixed media visual artist, poet, and storyteller based in Portland, Oregon, on Cowlitz and Clackamas Native lands. After earning a degree in fine art in Pennsylvania, they returned to the West Coast as a teaching artist with local nonprofits and museums. Day is one of the featured writers in Oregon Writers of Color 2020 Spring Showcase through Wiggan Press. Their current creative writing examines relationships, nature, culture, and history from a Black, neurodiverse, queer perspective. Fun fact about Day, they can recall plots and stories in relative detail, but not titles or authors. Same. It's a great skill. Day?
Thank you. So the piece I'm going to read, I actually wrote this fall. It is a poetic story in 3 parts titled Feeling Unusual. We wish for afterwards, after the sick feeling in the pit of our stomach which returned. We forgot, be yourself, love. Our throat tightens and moisture prickles behind our tired eyes in the dilemma of feelings. One feeling, a ball under our skin to the right of our ribs, lodged and pulsing with the cry for attention we do not want to give. Doubt, doubt, doubt. A sticky blanket of despair laying over pockets of hope and confidence. Doubt descends, casting a pallor over everything good and new, everything we clawed our way out of to reclaim. A gloom and crouching. We fill our space with smoke of determined jasmine, yet our ribs, under our ribs, that knot did not release its hold. Cling we to the knowledge it will eventually pass, when we can move without self-consciousness irritating our marrow. We want to slide into warmth of gentle hills and dips, be tender and needy without overbearing. When did self-doubt start? A lot of great things happening all at once. We don't know how to handle the abundance. No one taught us. Deep, somewhere in dusty, forgotten corners, detritus of the second guess hid away. Can our body receive and contain the amassing good? Is it possible to feel so full and scared at the same time? Our limbs plead for sleep, our jaw clenched. Return to yourself, vibration in the darkness reminded. Where did we go? Into the recesses of before. Ah, yes, the before. Come, let us look at the before. Let us peer into the ties and threads of the before. Out here in the field, under the elements that assail us, we work. We work and are not filled. We work and bend and work and tear our muscles and bones break and skin shreds, and we are not filled. We see day by day the sun up, the sun down, and cannot rest. We are forced to not rest and are not filled. We carry this with us. We move and work and gain learning and accolades and bleed ourselves and are not filled. We cultivate veins of steel and nerves of ice, bones of hard wood, and cut out sensitive, cut out softness, and are not filled. We build a fragile cocoon layer after layer. It hardens around what we think we deserve. We give and give and give and ignore our desires in all the giving and are not filled. We stifle the vibrations of our laughter, quiet the strength in our voice, set aside the wail and sob and are not filled. We try on different faces and push the hurt down into the pelvic floor, down into the cervix and the ovaries and testes to carry on, down into the pancreas, liver, kidneys, the small and large intestines. We hold our breath against the pain, seize our lungs over and are not filled. We seek that which is outside of ourselves instead of what resides within our diaphragm, under the sternum, encased in our skull, woven between our shoulder blades, our legs. We rage and are not filled. We wallow and obsess on things we've done and place the blame solely on ourselves and are not filled. Our ears are deaf to compliments, our eyes blind to support, for in that cocoon we built, there is no room for such vulnerabilities, and we are not filled. This is the before, the after, the now after. We dance in moonshine with our ingenuity. We come out of the hardened, many-layered shell. We feel tenderness and shrink away, but we begin to fill. We come now to the embrace of folks who do not expect us to be anyone but ourselves, and we come forward tentatively, cautiously, bit by bit, and we begin to fill. We come into a fog, ghostly in its etherealness, called rest. We toss and turn and groan and complain and beat ourselves with shame, but we begin to fill. We come now to the salt rain falling, tumbling, uncontrollable, and we jitter and we squeeze lids shut to stem the flood, but the gates have opened. We begin to fill. We test the waters and dig in silken sand and cover pearls and corals and iridescent clams of a personality forgotten, the fit unfamiliar, and right all the same. We begin to fill. We string together sounds loosening in our throats, creaky and hoarse. We step out for a moment. When fear grips us, we snap shut, but we begin to fill. Tinkling, soothing drops feel uncomfortable against our inner ear, vibrations seeking and searching for where we need to be held. We are frightened, stiff, our sinews snap taut, a squeak comes out. Yes, a little help will be nice. When care reaches out, we distrust it in almost all its forms, and yet we begin to fill. The cracks are wider now in our tough cocoon. We hold ourselves so tight, shivers ripple and course up and down the spine. We try to let go. We cannot relax even when we seek connection. We shut down at the first hint of rejection. We thrive in platonic. We begin to fill. We slowly spread ourselves in sunshine. Let everything grow. Be free in the chest, in our anger, and laugh joyously. We begin to fill. We are contented for a moment, the solid layer cocoon dissolving in the discovery of self-love. We dare to recognize what we need and name that which we desire. It comes, a cold, shocking wave, enlivening the sentence. We retreat, but we begin to fill. We could not fathom other forms of tenderness, spent days rolling in worry and silent longing and clinging to a phantom of what we thought we knew. We sleep, we regain our appetite, we hover around the edges instead of inviting ourselves into the fold. We forget to give space to be with ourselves. We encounter insidious and harmful wounds to insert and wiggle into what we think is the easy way, but we stop ourselves and we begin to fill. We forget we find we miss we cry with we. In the late spirit hours, we come to truth. We have much to learn, much to share, much to receive, and much to peel away. We can expand and begin again. We are whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Dee, or Day, sorry. I just like caught up in it. Thank you so much. That was so beautiful. Please give Day a round of applause and any comments for them in the chat. We are going to take a very brief intermission so that you have a chance to, if we were all together, go up and grab some cheese off the cheese plate, but in your own home, refill your beverages, grab a snack, use the bathroom, whatever you need. And we're going to resume in exactly 4 minutes. So we'll be back here at 6:13. That's my writer math for you. 6:13. We'll see you soon. Feel free to turn off your videos and then come back. And Valerie Pierce will be our first reader when we return. Thank you. It's really digging that wait music, Emily. Thank you so much for putting that on. Made it feel very official.
You're welcome. Just for you.
Missed it from the Portland Book Festival. If you're back, feel free to turn your video back on. We're going to go ahead and get started. I haven't had to do math that fast in a really long time, so hopefully I told you the right time. Our first reader is going to be Valerie. Valerie, are you back? Can't see. Oh, I see you. Great. So many people. Such a pleasure. Sorry, Emily, about more time. Oh yeah, so we have additional time at the end. If there are any WITS writers who are here who aren't signed up, you can feel free to private message me or just message us and let us know that you'd like to read. We'd love to hear your voices. So yeah, we'll have a little bit of time at the end for that. But before we get to that, we're going to go to Valerie Pierce. Valerie Pierce is a Portland-based writer, educator, and curriculum content developer. Having earned her MED from Concordia University, she has taught high school women's studies and social sciences. Valerie has written 4 children's books: When Mommy Needs a Timeout, When Daddy Needs a Timeout, I Love Colors, and Little Dot. Her work appears in Smart's Oregon Reads Aloud, a collection of 25 children's stories by Oregon authors and illustrators. She's currently working on a YA novel centering a young girl, abandoned and troubled, who finds the miracles of love and compassion shine brightest in the darkest of nights. A fun fact about Valerie is that Valerie is a huge fan of Charlie Brown, even as an adult. Every year she watches every themed episode. It's that time of year. I'm very excited to hear that. Thank you so much, Valerie.
Hello, everyone. I am going to read a piece. Hello, family. I see you. I love you. Thank you for being here. WITS, this is giving me energy and life, just so you know that. And I'm going to read a piece entitled, My Country 'Tis of Thee. And it's in African-American framework and vernacular, which we call not poetry, but flowetry. And this works and comes from roots of rap and our ways and our synchronization of saying things. So we call it flowetry. And so that's similar to what my piece will sound like. And I will give you that now. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I see. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. Of thee I sing. You are my one and true love. And if true love hopes all, believes all, and endures all, I am unequivocally your perfect all. And yet, you have despised me, stolen, bartered, and pillaged me, kidnapped, looted, and plundered me, a savage nuptial with no prenuptial? When you arrived on my sandy shores and my iridescent turquoise waves, I was confused by your sallow skin, blood-stained hands, and talk of slaves. For I was love encased in sun-kissed bronze skin, innocent, uninhibited, ripened with wanting. I did not know the words for human hunting, but you took me into captivity and misshaped me, made me the tree of a strange fruit, your murderous hands drying the leaves and killing the roots. I resisted this rage, broke free of the cage. By God, demanded my wage, this land where my fathers died, with no holdings or pride. I demanded freedom, the name of the ring you never placed on my finger. Your bride by the covenant of the 13th Amendment, a life sentence, your penance. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. It is of thee I will always sing. The ballot and the bullet, the sword and the shield, the folly and forgiveness. I fight for you. World War I and World War II. I fight for you, states red and states blue. I condemn you. You are no moral authority until you do right by me. This country has no glory. I plead with you, stop killing my babies. These Black bodies, they mean everything to me. But I'll stay with you. My home is here. There's no going back for me. The whole world understands what it means to be Black like me. The caste, the degrees, the hypocrisy. I'll stay here and fight because you're gonna love me. We'll stay together forever, and not with you as my oppressor, but with my ancestors' voice demanding the bride's fee, the one you never paid for me. My country, 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty. It is of thee I will always sing. I make this vow. It is of thee I will always sing. Because, for better or for worse, you're stuck with me.
Thank you so much, Valerie. Please, your applause, loud or otherwise, and then your kudos in the chat. I love to read them come in. Thank you so much, Valerie. Next up, we have Brian Benson. Brian Benson is the author of Going Somewhere. Oh, sorry. I'm going to start over. Brian Benson is the author of Going Somewhere, published by Plume in 2014. There's Brian. And co-author with Richard Brown of This Is Not For You, an activist journey of resistance and resilience, published by OSU Press in March of 2021. In addition to his work with literary arts, Brian teaches at the Attic Institute and facilitates Right Around Portland workshops in schools, treatment centers, and affordable housing. His short nonfiction has been published in Entropy, The Sun, and Off Assignment. He is at work on his third book, a novel. Fun fact about Brian, when Brian was 9 or 10, his parents offered to give him their insurance deductible if he could make it a full year without going to the emergency room. That is a really fun fact, Brian. Thank you for sharing. I would love some more explanation of that from your parents, but thank you.
My mom is here and she can tell you more. She didn't actually give me the whole deductible. She told me that it was $100 and it was more than that. And I only got it because I didn't tell her about all the injuries that I got that year. Anyway, thank you for the introduction. And thank you so much, just for organizing this reading, Jules and Emily. It's such an honor to be reading in this company. And Valerie, that was beautiful. I have been writing a lot of flash nonfiction, a lot of short nonfiction this year because it's what I can focus on this year. And so I'm going to read a pretty short piece called Backseat. One springtime Sunday, at the end of a play day with my best friend Luke, I found myself in the back seat of a station wagon, shivering. I'm shivering because I'm cold, because a Wisconsin spring is like most other places winter, and because Luke's brother, Jason, is driving with the window down. I sit quiet, clutching my bony elbows, watching Jason's dark arm hairs dance in the wind. I want to ask him to shut the window, but I don't know how to do that without sounding like the kind of boy I don't want Jason to know I am. I don't want Jason to know I'm a boy who can't handle a breeze, a boy who shivers when he's cold, who cries when he's sad. I don't want Jason to know that because he's a big boy, a popular boy, a boy other boys wish they could be, and because I know that last year, Jason's dad got drunk and threw him down the stairs, and even then, Jason didn't cry. I keep opening my mouth and then closing it, like a little fish. We're halfway to my house when I feel the car slowing. Jason looks up at me in the rear view. It's the first time he's looked at me the whole drive. And there's something funny in his eyes and the set of his bushy eyebrows. For an endless second, I think he must know I'm cold. And now he's going to stop this car and do what strong boys do to weak ones. But he just takes a hand from the wheel and points up ahead. So I lean forward slowly, straining against the seatbelt until I see it. A painted turtle scrabbling across the asphalt. I look back at the rear view at Jason, but he's no longer looking at me. He's just watching the turtle. So I watch too. And as I watch, I think about how good it feels to feel warm, and also about how weird this all is. I'm old enough to know what boys are supposed to do to animals. I've torn legs from grasshoppers. I've kicked sand over anthills. I've watched Luke try to feed a firecracker to a frog, and I've watched a boy named Max hit a duck in the head with a rock, and I have seen a man in a big gray Ford swerve just to hit a turtle like the one that's now crossing the road. Long after this, after I've grown some, after I've met more boys and men and begun to learn what it does and doesn't mean that I've never seen them shiver or cry, I'll think of this day. I'll wonder why I remember it, and once I've figured that out, I'll wonder about the turtle and what Jason didn't do when he saw it, and what answer he might have given to the question I wished I could ask. But I'm not there yet. I am still just a boy in a back seat, looking at a bigger boy behind a wheel, and he is looking at a turtle that's now in the safety of roadside grass. As Jason puts the car in drive, he looks at me again, his eyes seeming to smile. I open my mouth, but I find it's easier to grip my elbows and ask my question, so I look away and I hold myself still as the wind blows back into the car. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Please give Brian some applause, virtual and in the chat. Thank you so much. Our next reader is Cjwiggin. This is the point in which people would be walking up to the podium, and I realize on Zoom that that's why there's this weird pause, because we would have to walk up to the podium. Cjwiggin is a Jamaican-American writer and illustrator creating quiet and emotional artwork about relationships, identity, nature, magic, and hair. CJ relocated shortly after earning a double BA in English and Art from Black Hills State University in the Spearfish, South Dakota, and now works in youth art programming in Portland. Some of CJ's art can be found in Theories of Her, an experimental anthology, and on Everest Stories. CJ is currently working on a magical realism novella about the one worst thing in the world. Fun fact about CJ, CJ can go 3 full days without talking. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you. So today I'm going to read a piece of fiction. It's an excerpt from a 3-part story I've been working on for a little while. It's about the mutual cosmic connection between 2 teen strangers, and this is one of several scenes where they meet for the first time. Okay, so this is called Somewhere. She was running when I saw her. She was moving towards me down the center of the street in an oversized sweater and blue jeans, her footfall steady and unrushed. Her hair was out, long and a glowing shade of red that leapt from the 5 a.m. darkness like something ethereal. Sweat and rain fought to stick thin tendrils of it to her skin, and wind lifted the rest off her neck, creating a cape of fire. I'm not a runner or anything, but I knew immediately these weren't running clothes. That wasn't a running hairstyle. It wasn't a planned run. I could have worried about her if I'd wanted, taken the opportunity to flag her down and ask if she was okay. But I'm shy, and I could tell from the way she was running that also it wasn't a crisis. She never looked back over her shoulder with wide eyes to see if it was gaining. She never stopped me in my tracks, making me drop my bike as we drew nearer, grabbing my face in emphasis. Blood would have been streaming down her forearms as she tripped herself from the anxiety. I would have had to take action, urgently bang on a customer's door and ask them to call 911. but she was pacing herself. She didn't even look tired. She ran like it was relaxing, actually, like she was only getting her blood pumping before heading to school with no time for a costume change anywhere along the way. And as her eyes fell on my cycling figure, she only stared back, probably totally perved out. I tried to pry my eyes away. I couldn't really see her body. Like I said, she was wearing a sweater, loose and shapeless, swinging over slender limbs. I hoped she was 15. I prayed it into the universe that the age gap between us could be tolerable, if not totally fine by the time I was 18 and she would be 21. But her long, muscled legs, pronounced cheekbones, eyes sure of where they fell on the street, sent nothing. She could really be 6 or 7 years older than me. So I looked away, but then I turned back, and then I looked away, and then I turned back. I couldn't keep my eyes off her. It was as if I had to stare. A script was laid out somewhere, indicating Nestor stares at girl. I wasn't supposed to deter my attention. Keep looking, it said. At the top of the hill, before my bike was urged by gravity down the other side, our lives were laid parallel to each other, and I could see everything about her. Our brown eyes locked in the equality, but instead of smiling hello, we maintained eye contact for as long as possible. I could feel the blood pounding in my head and my heart beating through layers of crewneck t-shirt, ribbed sweater, army green hand-me-down puffer jacket. The wind was blowing so hard it should have knocked me from my oversized bike, steered her back the way she came, but it didn't. Nothing happened to slow either of us down, so we kept going and we kept staring. The way we gawked seemed to be the sort of gawking that derives from being unable to place something quickly, not uncomfortable, but rather considerate. When she looked at me, there was association in her eyes, and the most overpowering thought, I felt it too. Looking at her was like not being quite able to set a finger on where I'd heard a song before, not catching a word on the tip of my tongue, neglecting to snag a fleeting idea from a dream before it evaporated forever. I felt sure I knew her from somewhere, and yet this had to be the first time we'd physically crossed paths. Her face scrunched into a squint. Who are you? It's difficult to explain, but seriously, when she'd first closed in on me, she had brightened with recognition, maybe surprised to notice I was a friend of hers. She'd nearly smiled at me, had practically lifted her hand to wave, and I'd been fully prepared to wave back and pretend until I recalled for a friend she was. But then, just in time, she realized she wasn't really sure, and now as we moved by, no greeting was exchanged. Not even a hi with eyes slightly averted. No, it was too impersonal, and we knew each other from somewhere. We'd met before, and not only had we met, but our relationship had mattered. She was important, and I was important too, to her. I rode my brakes to slow down time, to be with her for just one more uninterrupted second. She blinked and I blinked, and perplexity rushed between us, powerful and indiscriminate. But then we passed each other completely. Feet and then yards of space grew between my wheels and her tennis shoes. I turned back at my first chance and was startled to catch her in the same act, turning back to look at me. She was frowning, slow jogging and shaking her head, questioning me. Why was I still looking? So I bowed away again, just quickly to face the road and check my steering. Maybe I should turn around and go after her. But when I looked again, she was gone. No, it could not be, but it could be, and it was. The realization that the moment was ended nearly sent me into a panic. I felt suddenly without my best friend. I'd lost someone I cared about, who I knew cared more about me than almost anyone else in the world. My favorite teacher, my girlfriend, my boyfriend, another mother even, my soulmate had vanished. I swallowed hard against the overwhelming confusion that was rising in my throat. Something had truly been taken from me, a thing I'd forgotten about at one point, but that I had really truly been obsessed with at another. Just gone, now forever, and I knew. At the bottom of the hill, the atmosphere was changed. My bike turned the next corner and the sun came out as if this was a nice day. When I looked down at my feet, they were pedaling at a normal rate. And then I looked down at my hands, they were off the brakes. The slow motion was over. The day was regular. There was nothing left to focus on. So the mundane facts of my life began to hit like rain. I was 12 years old. This was my first day delivering newspapers, but I was covering another boy's route, so I probably wouldn't take this exact path again. I'd woken up at 4:45 a.m. I had a Green Lantern water bottle in my bag for later, etc., and so on, and whatever forever.
Thanks so much, CJ. That was awesome. Please give your cheers for CJ in the chat or in your respective Zoom windows. Thank you so much for reading. Our next reader is Meg Griffiths. This is the part where Meg comes up to the podium. Meg E. Griffiths is a poet, educator, and freelance writer. She is the author of the forthcoming collection, Hallucinating a Homestead, which was chosen by Tracy Brimhall as the winner of the 2020 To Sylvia's Press Chapbook Prize. Her poem, When the Doctor Doesn't Believe Your Pain, was a finalist in Inverted Syntax's 2020 Sublingua contest, chosen by Dr. Khadija Queen. And in 2018, her essay, Hymation, was a runner-up for the Wabash Prize for Nonfiction. Her work has appeared or is forthcoming in the Missouri Review, Medium, Black Warrior Review, Homology Lit, and others. She is currently working on her first full-length poetry collection and a memoir. She lives in Portland with her partner and many animals. Fun fact about Meg is that Meg just started growing her own blue and gold oyster mushrooms. That's like quite a phrase, blue and gold oyster mushrooms. That's exciting.
Yes, yeah, just started that adventure. So it's, yeah, fruiting right now. But thank you so much, Jules and Emily, for hosting this reading. And thank you so much to all the readers who've gone before. It's been such a treat to get to know you through your work and hopefully eventually in person, yay. And CJ, that was incredible. I was entranced from start to finish. I can't wait to learn more about their other chance meetings. All right, so I'm gonna be reading 3 poems. The first one is called Mother Nature's Hot Girl Summer. There's not much point to existing when someone's finger is always in my mouth. The spells for water have failed, and blood blooms in bathtubs, has roots, feathers its own fever. August has been thirsty for months, summer curling smaller around a baby's fist, a nesting doll of environmental doom. I used to want a token, a sound for the dead, a stone fruit in the mouth of a doe. How earthy I could be then, hanging in the air like the last of a smoke signal, a medium taking a gamble on this all world. The TV split its head open, and that was the first sign. Contrary to popular belief, I'm not quite dead, and milkmen hunt for black water, acting surprised at the red afterglow, sniffing at their heels, and say, what? Oh me, oh yes you, monochrome lover. Each exhalation was once a monument. Now Sister Winter stands with matches in her hands because of your round temptations. Every path an orphan, fate taking the fall while destiny rides shotgun. Before the mass fainting, anyone that wanted it could get it. A thawing daughter, a salt field as muse, my mind was a motor running. When the river came to me on its back, without charm, without a roosting hour, there was no beneath, no below, only a matching birthmark, a salmon in the sky. Up until I stopped believing in God, honeycomb blossomed like gills on my neck. Light was a smooth stone, and it was all my fault. So that's Mother Nature's Hot Girl Summer. Next up is During Quarantine, Ellen DeGeneres Shadow Boxes. The ocean saw you, a fish in the bowl, a body icebound after a man-made lifetime in the cold, with a voice like a morning in San Francisco, fogging over the skyline and the stars' surprise silence. Propeller eyes hoping to disguise the trawl's long arm, driving back real and imagined creatures, their darkness an hour in the forefront of a mind. You went inside before you saw questions that float unnumbered, the ones you would caress as if setting a fire. A telephone rings, off the hook. a freedom easily swallowed when you answer its call every time. When you sparked on a small screen, did they tell you its synonyms, or were they already there, like a recurring dream? Boob tube, the box, a simmering moral decay, blue-white knuckles gripping a volcano. What did you dare say in the white gown that widows the eye? The eddies of public opinion flaking off at the bottom of a pool, plastic animals with a gut to wish upon the sky and the privilege of changing their minds. In flight, you stuck your thumb out, ready to climb on any back that could get to the steep arch of water's throat. And with the world's heaviest tongue, you found the language, a hidden message in a bottleneck, the alert of a single bird, frail and ubiquitous, arrived. Behind the new world and the shape of your beak on the shore, broke the fog. Once the church guided the hands as well as the mind to the Arctic, where icebergs resisted herons and deeper meanings, unaware of the slow-moving spirits that elude definition. They built nests thick as shipwrecks because they couldn't stand a silence that outlasted theirs. In the water stood a premonition of a ghost town, an act of God on a platter, a surprise to anyone with a dandelion neck. There was a choice here, quiet as a hairline. Which hand held the bruise of crossed fingers? Rewind. All the piggies' houses are still standing. Fast forward. A soundtrack underlines the squeal of the tape. The sky sparkles with aluminum fists from all the unattended parties. Lights raging on in empty rooms, putting all the stars to death. Okay, and then my last one, ending on a somewhat optimistic note, is survival skills for the new age. Thank you, everyone. Do not say zoo. Do not say much of anything in these brief passages of time that recede birds into featherless frontiers. When they say the holes in their wings are hereditary, the radio crackles in a librarian's whisper. Click your heels along to the music of bad weather. Replace the water under your bed to protect against the gliding ground of dreams. Do not confuse salt and sugar. In the green wild, I'm guilty too, of watching the crows rolling in the anthill, of tonguing language that drowned in the after hours, of formicage, a bird bath. The sky can't fall forever when north and south have given up their faith. There's a stink gliding over the birds, the ants pissing themselves in a furious curtain. Once a man said their movements are a mimicry of the jaw, but all I heard was, for 40 years, blood will run. For 3 days, a tomb stood crying. For 12 moons, all doors were locked. Behind a fig leaf, the pavement was sticky with good intentions. There are some things even now you can't unlearn. How awe requires silence and a ladder of nerves to uncork the hand above you, that broken beer bottle that swivels its eye with its best apiary of the goddess of harvest. Go ahead. They're nothing but a 3-bite savior, waiting for you to fulfill your destiny, to shut your eyes again. Grief solidifies underwater because the sea never stops chewing. In this way, you must minister it to it, make it tangible, spin it into gold. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Meg. Please put your cheers for Meg in the chat. I already see them coming in. Thank you. Those were really, really spectacular. Our final reader is Edmo. Ed is a Shoshone Bannock poet, playwright, performer, traditional storyteller, tour guide, and lecturer on Northwest tribal culture. Ed offers guided tours to the She Who Watches petroglyphs on the Columbia Gorge, as well as to the Warm Springs Indian Reservation in Central Oregon's high desert country. He conducts workshops, traditional storytelling performances, dramatic monologues, and lectures on issues such as cultural understanding and awareness, drug and alcohol abuse, and mental health. Ed is a published short story writer, poet, and playwright, and serves as a consultant to the Smithsonian Museum of the American Indian. Thank you so much for reading, Ed.
Hi, everyone. Good to see you all here. Yeah, anyhow, I write poetry since '62, played since 1984 in short stories. I'm reading from my new collection. In the light of the world was subdued, Our songs came through edited by Joy Harjo. In the chat, you can get it by Bradbury Books, or you can get it on Amazon. What we're going to read is called Poetry in Motion. It's featured on 1997 on the Max, the placard on the Max and the buses and TriMet. At Stone at Oregon State University Valley Library. The main door looked to the left of the door. There's a long, low bench. It's poems in granite. You know what I like about that? And it didn't have to die first. Most poets have poetry in granite are dead old dead white guys, not women or Indians. Indian education blues. I sit in the crowded classrooms and learn how to read about Dick, Jane, and Spot. I remember how to get a deer. I remember how to beadwork. I remember how to fish. I remember the stories told by the old, but Spot keeps showing up when my report card is bad. Thank you for listening, everyone. Have a good day. Thank you all your poets. Glad we did this. I really enjoyed poetry. Thank you.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Ed.
Thank you so much, Ed. Thank you to all of our readers tonight. It was such a joy to hear your work, and to get to be in this space with you. Hopefully, we'll all be in another space soon together. But with that, I'd like to turn it back to Emily. Thank you so much, and thank you for your fun facts too. I really appreciate it. So, hope to see you all soon.
Hi, everyone. Just wanted to say, also echoing what Jules said, thank you very much for joining us here this evening. It's been really wonderful to interact with you all in the chat and to have folks just zooming in from all different places. You know, this turnout is really amazing. So thank you all for being here and for not only, you know, supporting each other, but just showing up for our writing community, for WITS, and for being here. Thank you to our wonderful readers. We had, again, that was Matt, Carolina, Damien, Day, Valerie, Brian, CJ, Meg, and Ed. Please stay in touch with us. And if you all would like to unmute yourself as you say goodbye, feel free to do so. And we hope to see you all in 2021. Fingers crossed for a good year. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you, guys.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you. Thank
Adios.
you.
Gracias.
Angels.
Thanks, everyone.